This is the third part of the lecture for week number 7 on church staff. We're going to talk about staff evaluation and issues of dismissal and overall concerns. This is actually the fourth take I've done on this lecture. Yesterday was a pastoral crisis, and today I've been interrupted at least twice, so we're going to try one more time. One of the most neglected areas in church life is staff evaluation. Staff evaluation often does not come with any frequency, and as a result is not really very useful in helping a staff member know what's going on in terms of people's reaction to their work, or to give a staff member a constructive way to use that staff evaluation to set goals for the future. Staff evaluation also sometimes comes out of crisis when you're trying to fix a problem that's been going on for a long time, instead of part of a intentional positive process by which a staff member is constantly being able to look at how they are doing or performing and to deal with the issues of growth in their life as well. And staff evaluation, I'm afraid, also just simply occurs at salary time, when the biggest concern for the church is how much we're going to have to pay this person, and for the staff member as well. And we don't necessarily tie things to a good understanding of the staff's job. Staff evaluation, I believe, should be run through you as the chief of staff. And the purpose of that evaluation should be to set goals, to deal with any needs, to invite self-reflection from the staff member, to give an appropriate assessment of their current effectiveness from you and people that you gain input from, and also to make plans for the future so the person knows where they're going to go as they go forward and what will be expected of them and how they plan to accomplish that. Staff evaluation, I believe, should come at several levels. The first is the staff member's own self-evaluation. What do they understand about their job? How do they feel about their performance? What areas we'll go into that in detail just a little bit. Second, evaluation by people who understand the staff member's area of ministry. Too often staff evaluations are simply done by the council or sometimes by the congregation. God forbid that should be the way you evaluate them. But by people who really are not part of the person's weekly conduct of ministry, or by people who don't really understand what that ministry is all about. Staff evaluation should be done by people who the staff member supervises. In other words, they are called to be leaders. And how does that person who works under their leadership, how are they affected? How effective is that staff member for them? And then finally, your personal evaluation as the chief of staff. Because again, the buck stops with you, and they deal with you on a regular basis, and what you think about their job is very important. I provided a sample self-evaluation questionnaire, which I have in the assignment folder, and you might even want to have that with you as we talk. But you're going to see that there are quite a few questions here, but all of these questions are intended to give somewhat of a detailed answer so that you can have that in advance of your meeting with them. In fact, you ask them to complete that questionnaire, give them a time frame in which you want it done, and then you set an appointment to sit down and to discuss it with them. And you can see there are a number of questions I want to highlight, but one, let them celebrate what they believe they've accomplished in the past year. Before you tell them what you think they've accomplished or what others think, let them celebrate. What elements did they do well, and what did they learn from them? You know, one time in a search committee meeting, I heard a steel mill foreman who was on the search committee, who one of the questions to the candidate was, tell me about a time that you failed, or perhaps failed miserably, and what did you do about it, and what did you learn from it? I think that there are times in which we need to let the staff member tell you what they think went wrong. Quite often you then don't have to tell them, but you also want to know what did they learn from it. Every staff member has a list from the previous year or the previous evaluation that's left undone, and you need to ask, are those things how are you going to complete those in the next 12 months, or what things frankly don't need to be on the list anymore? Let them tell you areas where they would like to grow stronger or to improve, because you always want to encourage your staff members to be growing in their work and feeling that they're doing things that help them become better in their work. You need to ask them what would be their primary goals in the next 12 months. Let them tell you, because it's the ministry that they have been hired for. It is the ministry that is defined by their job description, and we should start there. And also, do they have any primary personal goals for the next 12 months? In other words, maybe one of their goals is to get back into reading the Bible daily because they want to grow spiritually. Maybe one of their goals is to train 5 new people in the next year. No, I'm sorry, I stepped away from that. That should have belonged to the previous one. What are some areas where perhaps they need to be growing personally? I need to take time for my Sabbath on a regular basis. I need time with my family. Let them tell you in a safe way what are personal goals. What is their plan for their spiritual growth? We need our staff members to be maturing in Christ. And how can the church, particularly the pastor and other leaders, facilitate you in your ministry the next 12 months? In other words, where could you use help? Where could you use cooperation? Let them identify that. And then a very important question that you're really going to have to tell them is okay to answer, and to accept their answer, in some cases a constructive criticism to which you do not respond defensively. You try to find a way to communicate it positively. And this is the question. What things does the church and its leadership do that makes fulfilling your position description much more difficult? Question make sense? Certainly. And then let's go to the question that relates to you personally. In what ways can I, as your supervising pastor, facilitate you in your areas of ministry? In other words, my job as the senior leader is to help make you successful. In what ways can I be doing that? And then always discuss compensation issues that need to be addressed. Now, you can't not necessarily make promises to them, and they may want the pie in the sky instead of what is realistic, but you need to talk about those things in a safe way, in a constructive way. And then finally, what is their long-range goal professionally, especially it relates to their work in the church that they're serving with you now. But I have one staff member who a couple of years ago, who was going through seminary, simply said, my goal ultimately is to do a good job here, to grow as a Christian minister. But in the long run, I really don't believe my calling is to remain in this position. At some point, I want to be open to taking a pastorate of my own. And then the always question, any other comments? I think that when you evaluate the staff, you also need to invite people that they would say understand their ministry, and give them a questionnaire, somewhat briefer, that you can compose for questions that would help you understand the staff member's job. And I think it's all right to let the staff member pick the persons they think best understand their job. And usually, if you couch it in the right framework, and if the person doing the evaluation understands that it is a confidential evaluation, that you're not going to name names or take prisoners, but you're going to use the information in a confidential way to help the staff member grow, that you will get some very candid answers. And it is important also to pick some people, maybe you and the staff member together, pick that person that they supervise, and again, ask questions. What I would encourage you not to do is to create any kind of survey instrument that's on a Likert scale or Likert scale that says rate them on 1 to 10. That doesn't tell you anything in most cases, because you need explanations in all cases to make it work well. Then we come to the issue that occurs, sadly, I have to say, and somewhat reluctantly, but we need to talk about the questions of dismissal, because there come times when you know that a staff member needs to leave or must leave. And let me talk about some of the things that are included in that dynamic. Remember that this is a job that falls to you primarily as the chief of staff. It is also occasion to do pastoral work with them as you try to help them deal with that reality. But here are the reasons for dismissal. One is ineffectiveness or poor performance. If they're just not getting the job done, or people are not responding to their leadership, that's probably a reason. That is a reason ultimately for dismissal. Any kind of criminal activity or conviction of a crime is reason for dismissal. When there's a divergence of philosophy, when they have one sense of the way things have to be approached, and you and the church have a different sense, uh, you may have to dismiss them. At one time, I had a family pastor who wanted to create a parent support group, actually at my encouragement, and he always called it Parents for Christ. Unfortunately, in our church, uh, the dynamic or the target that he had didn't exist. He wanted to have a father and a mother, and basically a father and mother who had kids, 2.6 kids or whatever the number is. And he was basically going to do lessons on being good Christian parents and to let them talk about it. But the reality is, a large part of our parents were single parents, or one parent was a Christian and the other parent was not really that involved. And then we had to, because of our outreach programs, a number of parents who could have been benefited by this group. But the fact of the matter is, the name kept them away because they weren't thinking particularly about being Christians, but they were thinking about being parents. No one was coming to his workshops and his group. And no matter how many times I tried to tell him that, he persisted in using that model as the only model he was prepared to work with, particularly because it reflected the way he had parented. That caused us a point. That was one of the major reasons why we ended up having to release him, because he was not getting people. He just had a different philosophy. Number 4 is moral failures, such as sexual misconduct, that is a reason for dismissal. Or failure to deal with personal issues. Perhaps they have anger issues and you've tried to counsel them about it, even provided counseling for them, but they just don't get it, or they just don't do it. It's a reason for dismissal. Financial realities. I hate to say it, but the fact of the matter is sometimes the church does not have the money to continue them. And that's where you particularly need to be helpful as you tell them we're going to have to release you. Perhaps to give them some out counseling, perhaps to help give them a connection to the next job. Insubordination. I'm a firm believer that people who just don't take instruction, just don't work with the system, people who defy church leadership, particularly you, that's a reason to dismiss them. Because when they are insubordinate, they create disunity and division of the church, and they become often a magnet for other people who are not positive about the church. When they are not supportive of the mission, when they have their own mission that has nothing to do with the church's mission, and where they need to be involved in key aspects of that mission, they just do not cooperate, it's a reason for dismissal. Or they're unwilling to take direction. If they're not teachable, if they want to do it their way or no way, it's a reason for dismissal. If they're divisive, I don't think I need to say more about that. If they have doctrinal positions or come to new doctrinal positions that are inconsistent with the word, there are reasons for dismissal. And the last one may sound kind of crazy, but when they do something really, really, really stupid. Perhaps not the first time they've done it, but sometimes when you do something really, really, really stupid, you cannot recover from that mistake, and you know it. I used to be the chairman of church and pastor in the Indiana conference before it became the Midwest conference. And when we would hire new pastors, we would say, please understand, if you're having problems with job performance, talk to us. We can help you improve. If you're having questions about doctrine, we can work with you on that to help make that correct, or help you to learn in a way that you understand what needs to be happening. If just a whole host of things. Frankly, even if you do something criminal or immoral that you can repent of, and we can put you through restoration. We don't necessarily have to fire you or release you. We may suspend you. But I'm going to tell you the one thing, just don't do anything stupid. Because stupid causes you to lose respect, and sometimes creates a reputation, or sometimes creates an atmosphere from which you cannot recover. Now, except in clear cases for immediate dismissal, I would say you always consult with someone else before you dismiss, or maybe you have a group of people who help you make that decision, like the elders. But here's the thing, probation comes before dismissal. In fact, at times, I won't even say probation, but to say sabbatical comes before probation. you just know the staff member is not doing well, and they really just are not doing well because they are just tired and burnt out. And one of the best things you can do is say, for a while, we are going to cover your responsibilities a different way. You need to take time. This is not vacation. You need to take time to get yourself back restored, and we'll do what we can to help you. Other times, you just need to say to them, you have done something that needs to be dealt with, and until it is dealt with, we're going to frankly put you on probation. We're going to say, these are the things you have to do to recover. Do them. If they don't do them, the next step would be suspension, because you need to just say, we can't let you continue. We will consider the case. We will see if there are any other alternatives, but for now, you are not on duty. And then finally is dismissal. Now, I think that you should deliver the news. Don't delegate it away. But I'm going to suggest that you need to always have a partner present. There needs to be a witness. And you need to operate from the facts, not from feelings. And you need to make sure that when you are dismissing, you are under control. And also, you need to make clear that they have responsibilities following the dismissal, and the church has responsibilities, and you always want to document a dismissal meeting. This lecture is getting a little longer than I thought. I just have some final thoughts. Some of them I've spoken about a little bit before, but here's some final thoughts. Let's go back to Collins. With staff, it is very important to get the right persons on the bus and get the wrong persons off the bus. 2, remember you're always hiring leaders. Highly skilled workers get the job done, but they rarely develop new leaders in the area they're responsible for. And a leader's job is to equip. A staff member's job really is to equip as well, unless you've hired them for such a specific purpose, say like counseling. But even then, I think they can help develop leaders. Do not, as I said it before, do not micromanage. Clear job descriptions with clear goals. Evaluation is done regularly. Staying off their turf, hold them accountable for their actions. Number 4, keep an open door to them. But plan for them to come through the door regularly. I told you have those weekly or bi-weekly meetings. You always be their advocate to the congregation. Make sure that you are telling the congregation the story of your staff, and make sure that when church people are beginning to be unfair to your staff member, you defend them. In fact, protect them from what is unfair and protect them from what is irrelevant. Avoid triangulating. Make people first take their concerns about a staff person to the staff person, so they have to be honest about their problems. See that they're always paid fairly and are rewarded. Keep short accounts. Let me go back to the previous one. Most churches have a pastor appreciation every year. I served one church that only the pastor got appreciated, but they had 3 other staff members. I think that's the occasion to make sure that everyone is cared for in that situation. Number 9, keep short accounts. Forgive and forget. Don't make the list long. If the list gets so onerous that it is almost impossible to forget, then maybe it is time for dismissal. Evaluate regularly and always ask for their input. Take their concerns seriously, and make sure you know how to help them be a success. Praise in public, criticize in private. Go back to no surprises. Make sure they don't get a surprise from you that you haven't discussed with them first. Always challenge insubordination promptly. I think you need to cultivate an HR committee, a human resources committee that works with you. Now, maybe it is the elders, but you need that cover. You need that protection as well as you deal with staff members. Pray for them regularly and pray in their presence. Don't just say, I'll pray for you. Say, let me pray with you. And I'm going to suggest that you monitor their Facebook and social media accounts, because other people read their social media accounts. And quite often what there's being said to them or about them on Facebook, you need to pay attention to. I had a situation where my youth pastor one time was just one of those guys even had man crushes on him. But I was reading a Facebook page of two or three of the girls on the youth group who actually allowed me to be on Facebook with them, and they were actually talking about what they would like to do with this pastor. And the word is sexual. I won't say any more than that. And I picked up the phone and I called him and I said, "Do you realize what's being said about you on Facebook?" And he says, "Absolutely. I saw it, and I am going to have a conversation with those young ladies about this situation." But that way he knew I was paying attention and I would have his back. But also at times, people, even myself included, kind of get off on a tangent on Facebook or social media and say things that probably are not appropriate or might actually impact their work. Pay attention to those things. Be sure that they know where the stones are crossing the river. There's the old joke about three men who were men of the cloth who were in a boat fishing partway out of the lake, and one guy says, "Oh, I forgot my lunch. I'll go get it." He climbed out of the boat, stepped out on the water, walked on top of the water back to the shore, and then he came back. The second guy, after a little bit, says, "I need some more bait." He got out of the boat, walked on top of the water back to the shore, came back, walking on top of the water, got back into the boat. The third pastor is thinking, I'm just as spiritual as those guys. So he made up an excuse, and he got out of the boat, stepped out of the water, and sunk right away. And the other two guys said to each other, "Do you think we ought to tell him where the stones are?" You know where the stones are, the things people need to step on to step carefully through dangerous or deep water. And when you're aware of them, make sure your staff is aware of them as well. I would say that you require written reports because written reports are a record, and you respond to those reports. You don't just read them. You let them know what you saw, what you appreciated, etc. You need to say thank you frequently. Enough said. And finally, make sure that they take a Sabbath and model that value yourself. These are the things I want to say to you this week. This last set of final thoughts will be on your assignment sheet as well. God bless you, my brothers and sisters. I really have been enjoying this time we have together and reading your responses and dialoguing with you and seeing your dialogue. Be well, be loved, be like Jesus.